So I'm working on the McCormick Deering corn binder knife system, and it's basically made up of 8 components or 7 components with another piece added to make 8. And in reality, you need to replace typically this piece right here, which supports the bottom of the knife. It is always worn. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a right here is up against this that protects it, but then this is where the knife wears, and you can actually see that it is down to 1/8 of an inch instead of 1/4 of an inch. Now the previous people actually laid that on top to support the knife, but that would create issues on its own instead of replacing it. Now the original only had a bolt hole here, but the new ones that I make, I actually put a slot in so you have a little bit of adjustment. I do that for several reasons, mainly because, quite frankly, I'm not talented enough to put that hole in the exact location it needs and then bend it. So I make a slot there. And so that's a key piece, that red piece there that needs replaced. This piece here is basically a hold down for the knife, and it can get so sharp it actually acts like a knife. It could be a knife after you take it off. It wears down really hard. So that's the one that will keep the knife forward instead of allowing it to drop back. And then you have another hold down here, and both those they keep the knife from rising up and down. And then you have the knife itself, and the knife basically consists of this and a knife section. There is a New Holland knife that will interchange. I can't remember the number at the top of my head, and this is the actual knife that come off this binder. It's actually in very good shape. What happens when these knives wear badly, this ridge right here will disappear, and I'll tell you why that's important later. And they will get really thin here, because what happens is when this part wears, it allows this to dip down or up or whatever, you know, this allows, so the knife doesn't run flat anymore, it runs on an edge. And so very seldom do you see a used knife that good, but this is actually a very nice, from what I can see, a low use binder. And normally I would put this back on, but this is going to be a high-end, pretty expensive binder, so it's getting an all-new knife. Now again, if you have a good enough one, you can just replace that knife section. So those are 4 of the components, or 5 if you count this. And then you have the side knives itself. And again, these knives, I probably would have just sharpened them and put them back on, because they're very good. But again, being the price of what the binder is going to be, it's got new knives. And then the third, or not the third, but probably the last piece that's pretty important is this hold down. And what this hold down does, there's a hump right here that's totally worn off on this, and that is very, very normal. And what that does, that keeps that knife from going back into here, and in turn, if that hump is gone, that will put pressure on that and so forth. So, and again, that's why this ridge is important too, because it actually keeps it from coming forward too. This ridge being worn on a knife is bad normally, but everything together acts as a wear point for the knife system. Now sometimes and underneath here, underneath the knife and your angle irons and so forth, is a heavy casting that the knives kind of lay in on both sides, and it also will keep, because your angle irons are kind of weak, it will keep your angle irons from tilting this way. Now every once in a while you will still get the angle irons tilted, and what happens then is your knife won't lay flat. It'll actually tilt down or tilt up, whatever the case may be, not allowing your knife to lay flat. Now, a lot of people don't think they have problems. Let me just one more thing. I'm not sure if it's on camera or not, but in the end of this pitman is a bronze bushing, and it will almost always need replaced. You know, every rebuilt binder I do gets a new bushing. And it actually works out well because it's the same bushing as in the McCormick Deering mowers when they had a bushing. You do have to drill a new grease fitting or a new grease hole, but it is the same bushing as the McCormick Deering pitmans on their mowers. But back to this. So if your knives aren't laying flat, you know, first of all, you want to check your casting to make sure it's not warped or cupped or whatever. And if it's nice and flat, that still will allow, because it stops right about here, your angle iron still could be tilted. I basically just take a big wrench and I'll pry this up or down or whatever the case may be. And back to, a lot of people don't worry about their knives so much because corn is so, I don't want to say easy to cut, but it's not like a mower where it's really fine and you have to have a very fine-tuned cutting system so you don't trap the grass in between your guard and your knife. So your corn comes back here, and obviously the side knives may even cut it before it gets to this part, depending on how straight you drive. But because this knife moves back and forth, you kind of want, you know, it to lay flat. It's not, again, it's not a big deal, and I don't lose sleep over it if I can't get it perfect. Like right there, it's not perfect, but it's acceptable to me. I don't lose sleep over it. You know, where a mower, I would have to think about why it's doing that or whatever. But there is roughly a 16th inch gap. And I will take a wrench on here and try and pry up a little bit and see if that helps it. But if it doesn't, because the stock is so stemming, it will cut, and it will cut even if you have a totally worn out knife system, I found, because most people don't even know they have a problem, or most people don't want to address any issues they have, because I just don't think there are issues, number one. So this, you are looking, I don't know the updated price on the knife, but you are looking right around $100, $120, $110. Well, no, with the side knives, you're probably about $150 right here. Now my prices are probably a little outdated, but somewhere around $150. Now these two bolts here will stay, but these two bolts here are just in for now, and they will come out and some more stuff added here once I start putting the boards on. So that's a McCormick Deering knife system on a corn binder. Again, 7 or 8 pieces depending on how you classify them, and you would definitely almost always replace at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the bushing 6, 7. I don't know where I'm at anymore. I lost track, but you get the idea. Very seldom can you reuse this, or this. The knife almost always gets changed, this section. The knife is a 50-50 thing. Again, I could have reused this knife. I'll actually save it for a binder that's not gonna get a total rebuild. But yeah, again, this binder is a very low use binder as near as I can tell. Everything looks fantastic on it. So that's, in the John Deere, it's similar. It's not exactly the same. I don't think anything's interchangeable. I know, I'm very certain nothing's interchangeable. But to my knowledge, and I could be very wrong about this, nobody's making aftermarket parts for the John Deere binders. So if you have a John Deere binder, you're kind of out of luck. And that's just where it stands. That's one reason I don't do a lot of binders other than but also they're just, you know, they're a quarter of the price of a McCormick Deering. And the McCormick Deering PTO binders are also very different, much heavier. Everything's heavier. The side knives are heavier. The knife itself is heavier. It can accommodate more wear points, or it has more wear points to keep a knife in line. It's just a totally different system. So it's much heavier on the PTO binder. So that's the McCormick Deering corn binder knife.